Hi there, welcome to our first real Casual Friday session. So, this week I have already received some questions. Not much, I have to say, so I'm a little bit disappointed. Please take this opportunity of asking questions because I really believe we can learn a lot of things together. And also, your questions are good inputs for me in providing the best course for you. So, I have a question from John. John asks me and asks to all of us, can you give me some information on how retail credit risk differs from wholesale risk? Now, I don't think I have to explain the difference between wholesale and retail banking, but for sure there are differences in the which we approach credit risk in these two frameworks. In wholesale credit risk management, we deal with larger institutions, and in this framework, most of the models we have seen and we will see together can be actually used. For example, Moody's KNV, and in general, all capital markets models or portfolio models if we have a portfolio of exposures. The problem when we deal with wholesale risk management is in more a statistical type of problem, and it's mainly related to the quality of the data we have. Because you can imagine that for certain types of counterparties, the amount of data we have is not enough. So consider, for example, the number of defaults we can observe in the data for very large corporation with a triple A rating. Obviously, if the data are not enough, these may open issues for what concerns the reliability and the quality, the robustness of our estimates. And if we have just a few data, this may really lead to a serious historical bias in the estimates. When we deal with retail banking, so to retail credit risk management, the problem is not related to data because we typically have a lot of observations given the larger number of counterparties. In retail banking we deal with small companies, medium companies and individuals. So observing defaults, observing recoveries, partial recoveries is not big problems from that point of view. It's more a modeling issue because when we deal with retail banking and retail credit risk, we are dealing with models like scorecards, like the FICO score, that are essentially factor models whose aim is to give a ranking and a rating to the counterparties. And these models are very sensitive to the quality of the factors we are using. So the problem may be that even if we can observe a lot of counterparties, the quality of some of the factors we are using to assess the PD of the counterparty are, for example, based on self-declarations, and this introduces non-trivial problems in the quality of the data that we acquire, or even we have that these models are very sensitive to changes in the legal and in the cultural framework in which we are applying the model. So from one country to the other, the same model may not work, so need to be adapted to the local market. Now we have a second question from Kirill. Kirill tells us that in the realities he has worked for, from Russia to Italy, the most used model for estimating the probability of default of medium corporate clients is logistic regression. He asks what I think about the use of more advanced techniques and why are more advanced models often ignored. Now, this is an important point. Next week, in a new session, you will find on the course platform the Voices from the Field section, we will deal with this problem with experts from Deloitte, Netherlands. Now, I think you know that one of the main differences between Basel II and Basel III is really the more conservative approach to risk. And this is essentially due to the impact of the 2007-2008 crisis. In Basel II, actually, advanced models were encouraged because there was this possibility of lowering the capital requirements. But now you can understand that if the regulator becomes more conservative and pushes against the possibility of lowering the capital requirements excessively, the convenience of using an advanced approach essentially disappears. Also because using advanced approach requires to have a team of experts implementing the model, developing the model, if you really want to use an internal model that you have developed. So this is for sure something that costs money, and if the benefit is not comparable, you lose the convenience of doing that. And another problem is that if you really have a very advanced model, a very fancy, cool model, it's also more difficult to sell this model to the regulator because they will for sure check all the small details. So sometimes it's easier just to take a simpler, standard approach that everyone understands and that you can really easily sell on the market. Another problem of the advanced approach is that the quality of data may become extremely relevant. And in particular, if you consider low frequency events, so when you really enter in the domain of defaults that are rarely observed or similar events that are rarely observed, there is this trade-off about the possibility of using fancy models and the type of data that you can really use for estimating the models. But these are all issues that we will consider in more details later on during the course when we have a nice understanding of the basic models we can use to estimate the probability of default and the other quantities we are interested in, like for example the loss given default. And for sure we will enter in all the issues related to model risk that obviously also takes into account the possibility or not to use more advanced approaches. I'm receiving a lot of emails from participants in this course asking me more insight about the use of survival analysis for LGD estimation. Now, this is a topic I like a lot, and I would be happy to share more details with you. I could also share some of my recent research. On the course platform, you have the possibility of asking for extra topics for week 6. If you really think that survival analysis for LGD modeling is something you really want to see in more details, you want to go deeper in the understanding of these models, or you even want, for example, a broader introduction to the topic, please write what are your preferences. For me, it's not a problem even to pick 2 extra topics, because what I want is to offer you a nice course which is calibrated on your needs. There are some contents we cannot avoid in order to have a consistent course, but we can surely add extra topics that you like, that you feel are useful for your career, for your everyday business life. So please go there and let me know what your preferences are.